Hello again, and welcome back to now week 3 of year 4 of the Religious Education Initiative. This is day 3. We're continuing through the Gospel of John. So last time we saw Jesus come to John, who proclaimed him to be the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world, the Son of God. This time we will see Jesus begin to call disciples to follow him, starting with two that had been following John, who the forerunner sends to follow Jesus instead. So the next day, John again was standing with two of his disciples, and as he watched Jesus walk by, he exclaimed, "Look, here is the Son, here is the Lamb of God." The two disciples heard him say this, and they followed Jesus. When Jesus turned and saw them following, he said to them, "What are you looking for?" They said to him, "Rabbi," which translated means teacher, "where are you staying?" He said to them, "Come and see." They came and saw where he was staying, and they remained with him that day. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. One of the two who heard John speak and followed him was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He first found his brother Simon and said to him, "We have found the Messiah," which is translated the Anointed One. He brought Simon to Jesus, who looked at him and said, "You are Simon, son of John. You are to be called Cephas, or Cephas, which is translated Peter," which doesn't mean anything to us, because Peter's just a name, but Peter means rocky, the rock-like one, the rock guy. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him about whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus, son of Joseph from Nazareth." Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." When Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him, he said of him, "Here is truly an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael asked him, "Where did you get to know me?" Jesus answered, "I saw you under the fig tree before Philip called you." Nathanael replied, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered, "Do you believe because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than these." And he said to him, "Very truly I tell you, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." Now, there are a few things we should pay attention here. First of all, the text says, the evangelist John here tells us that there are two disciples who are standing with John the Baptist when John the Baptist says again, "Behold the Lamb of God," and that they both go and follow. But he only names one of them. He names Andrew. Who's the other one? We should pay attention. And also ask the question, how does the author know about this? Well, he knows about it because he's there. As we've seen before, when we have an unnamed person described, we usually understand that this is the author himself. He's in a somewhat retiring way showing the other guy was me. But he doesn't actually say that, but we should read it this way. So Andrew, the brother of Simon Peter, and John, the son of Zebedee, brother of James, were together disciples of John the Baptist, and John the Baptist, standing there talking to them, sees Jesus walking by and says, "That's the Lamb of God, you go with him." And they go and become disciples of Jesus. So what we see later on with John and James and Peter and Andrew called away from their fishing boats is not in fact the first time Jesus has met them. But so John is giving us kind of the rest of the story. And in a lot of ways, John is sort of the Paul Harvey of the New Testament. He's looking at the stories that are told by the others and saying, let's give some more detail. Let's tell some more. Another eyewitness account, my eyewitness account. And also he's writing later, so he's answering questions that have arisen, addressing problems that have cropped up in the life of the church. And some of those are clearly this question of who exactly is this Jesus, how God how much God is he? And John is saying very clearly, he's God. And we get this indicated as we carry on here, because when Simon Peter is brought to Jesus, Jesus doesn't ask to be introduced to him. He tells Simon who he is, and he gives him a new name. So, how does he already know him? Well, we could guess Andrew had told him. But this next meeting with Nathanael is still something more, because Jesus calls Philip to follow him. Philip immediately goes and calls Nathanael to come with him. And when Nathanael comes, Jesus makes a biblical reference, because as we're already beginning to see, reading about Jacob in the Old Testament, whose name becomes Israel, Jacob is a deceitful one. Jacob tricks his brother out of his birthright, and then we'll do some more trickery in I think next week's reading. So full of deceit, Jacob is. So Jesus sees Nathanael, a descendant, and he says, "Here is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." So already referencing Jacob there. And Nathanael says, "Well, how do you know me?" And then Jesus says something that we don't understand, but that Nathanael does. He says, "I saw you under the fig tree before Philip called you." He doesn't say what, but clearly Nathanael knows what he's referring to, because his response is, "There's no way you could know that I was under the fig tree. You are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." We don't get Nathanael's story, because it's not our story. We understand that Jesus spoke to him in a way that spoke to his heart and proved and demonstrated who he was. And Jesus says, "You believe because I told you that? You'll see more than that." And again, referencing what we'll see happen to Jacob in a few weeks' time, he says, "You will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending, not upon Bethel, not upon Jacob, but upon the Son of Man, upon the Messiah, upon me." So these are the things that are kind of going on here. And ultimately, it's worth referencing. We see multiple times here when people are coming to Jesus and they're looking for, they're asking a question, especially, when Nathanael says to Philip, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Apparently the town had a reputation. Philip doesn't argue with him. He just says, "Come and see." And ultimately, this is the only final answer to any doubts about who God is, about what he is doing for his faithful. Not, arguing history with people, not arguing theology, but simply come and see. Come and encounter the Lord. It's a good reason to invite a friend to come to church. So, anyway, that's it for week 3. God bless you all. We will see you next week.